A white officer humiliated Judge Marcus Wayne at the courthouse doors. Later, that same officer stood trial for assaulting a black teenager, with Marcus presiding. The case exposed deep systemic racism and led to a confession that shook the entire community. What happened next was simply unbelievable. Let's start at the beginning. Judge Marcus Wayne, a 45-year-old black man with a commanding presence and piercing eyes, strides confidently into the courthouse. Dressed in a sharp dark suit, he exudes an air of authority. Today's case is significant, and every step he takes echoes purposefully across the marble floor. Just as he approaches the security checkpoint, Officer Adam Pierce, a 32-year-old white guard with a stern demeanor, steps forward, blocking Marcus's path. "Excuse me, sir," Adam says, his tone more suspicious than polite. "I'm going to need to see some ID." Marcus raises an eyebrow, slightly taken aback. "I'm Judge Wayne. I work here." Adam's eyes narrow, scanning Marcus up and down. "I'm sorry, but I'll still need to verify that. Just doing my job." Marcus pauses, his hand instinctively tightening around his briefcase. His voice remains calm, but there's an edge to it now. "Would you stop every white man in a suit walking through these doors and demand ID? Or is this special treatment reserved just for me?" The tension thickens as other staff and visitors begin to glance over, sensing the brewing confrontation. Adam, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to back down, stands firm. "I don't make exceptions," he replies flatly. Marcus pulls out his wallet and hands over his ID with slow deliberation. "Here you go, officer. Take a good long look. Maybe next time you'll recognize me." Adam studies the ID longer than necessary, his jaw tightening. Marcus doesn't flinch, locking eyes with the officer until the ID is handed back. "You're good to go," Adam mutters, stepping aside. "Good to know," Marcus says with a calm, cutting tone, before walking past. But as he ascends the courthouse stairs, his mind races. This isn't just about a minor inconvenience. It's a reminder of the bias he's fought against his entire career. And today, that fight is about to take an unexpected turn. Marcus enters his courtroom, shaking off the lingering frustration. The trial is set to begin in minutes, a case involving a major police misconduct lawsuit. As he takes his seat at the bench, he scans the room, only to spot Officer Adam Pierce seated in the gallery, wearing his uniform but no longer acting as a guard. Marcus's gaze sharpens. "What's he doing here?" he mutters under his breath. The case unfolds, revealing shocking details. A black teenager, unlawfully detained and physically assaulted by officers, is suing the department. The lead defendant? Adam Pierce himself. The irony isn't lost on Marcus. Throughout the proceedings, Adam avoids Marcus's gaze, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. The evidence is damning. Body cam footage shows Adam using excessive force, followed by blatant racial slurs. Witnesses corroborate the story, including the teenager's tearful testimony. When it's Adam's turn to testify, his voice wavers. He tries to justify his actions, claiming he felt threatened. Marcus listens intently, his face unreadable. "Officer Pierce," Marcus says, his voice steady but loaded with meaning. "Do you believe your actions that night were justified? And before you answer, consider that your words here are not just for this court. They will be remembered by the community you swore to protect." Adam hesitates, glancing at the jury, at the boy's family, then at Marcus. His defenses falter. The chambers are quiet, bathed in the muted glow of a desk lamp that casts long shadows across the walls, lined with shelves of legal volumes. The atmosphere is heavy, a sanctuary for deliberation and difficult truths. Judge Marcus Wayne stands behind his desk, a towering figure of authority. His sharp suit is immaculate, but his stance is not just professional. It's deeply personal. His piercing eyes study the man before him like a book he's long since learned to read. Adam Pierce steps inside, his hands clasped tightly together, shoulders slumped. The polished black boots of his uniform scuff slightly against the hardwood floor. His normally rigid posture is gone, replaced by an air of discomfort, almost vulnerability. "Judge Wayne," Adam begins, his voice subdued, his eyes darting between Marcus and the floor. I didn't realize who you were earlier. Marcus doesn't move. He watches, his expression carved from stone. Does it matter who I am? He replies, his voice calm but cutting, each word like a chisel against Adam's crumbling defenses. What matters is your character, Officer Pierce, not your assumptions. Adam swallows hard, the weight of those words sinking in. His mouth opens, searching for a response, but he falters. His gaze drops, unable to meet Marcus's unyielding stare. I made a mistake, he finally admits, his voice cracking. Stop, Marcus says, lifting a hand. The motion is decisive, commanding silence. He steps out from behind the desk, his shoes making a measured sound against the floor, each step purposeful. Now, standing just a few feet away, his towering presence is unmissable. The mistake wasn't stopping me at the door, Marcus says, his tone even but charged with meaning. The mistake was carrying the same bias that led you to harm an innocent boy. That wasn't a lapse in judgment, Officer Pierce. That was a reflection of who you've allowed yourself to become. Adam's face tightens, shame etched into every line. His hands twitch at his sides, like he's unsure whether to stand at attention or collapse under the weight of his guilt. I don't know how to fix it, he admits, his voice barely audible, as if confessing to himself more than anyone else. What can I do? Marcus leans in slightly, his voice lowering but gaining intensity. Change, he says, the word hanging in the air like a gavel strike. Start by being honest. Here, now, and every day after. Not just with me, not just in this court, but with yourself. Recognize the harm you've done, not just to that boy, but to every person who looks like him and sees the system you represent as an enemy. Adam nods slowly, his breathing unsteady. He doesn't speak again, the moment too heavy for words. Marcus steps back, his gaze softening slightly, but still firm. This isn't just about you, Marcus continues. It's about something bigger. It's about dismantling a system that allows men like you to act on prejudice unchecked. You want to know what you can do? Start by taking responsibility. In there. Marcus nods toward the courtroom door. In front of the people you've wronged. Adam's head dips in acknowledgement. For a moment the chambers fall silent again, the quiet pressing in around them. Then, with a deep breath, Adam straightens his back, not out of defiance, but as a man finally carrying the weight of accountability. I'll do it, he says, his voice steadier now. I'll own up to it. Marcus nods, his expression unreadable. Good. Now go. Without another word, Adam turns and leaves, his footsteps echoing faintly as the door clicks shut behind him. Marcus exhales slowly, his eyes falling briefly to the desk before him. It's not victory, he knows. But it's a step, and for now that's enough. The courtroom is tense as Adam Pierce rises to take the stand. His steps are heavy, and his hands grip the edges of the witness box as if to steady himself. I was wrong, he begins, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. That night, I acted out of prejudice and ignorance. I harmed this boy and his family, and I failed my duty to the badge. Gasps ripple through the courtroom, but Adam doesn't stop. This wasn't an isolated moment. There's a culture in the department that tolerates bias, and I contributed to it. For that, I am deeply ashamed. He turns to the plaintiff's table, looking directly at the teenager and his family. I'm sorry, he says, his voice trembling, but sincere. You didn't deserve this. The prosecutor presses for more, and Adam continues, exposing the unspoken biases and systemic failures within the department. His testimony is raw and damning, breaking the unspoken code of silence. The jury deliberates, returning shortly with their verdict, in favor of the teenager. Relief floods the room as the family embraces, tears streaming down their faces. The gallery begins to empty, but Adam remains seated, his head bowed under the weight of what he's admitted. When he finally stands, his shoulders slump, and he exits without looking back, a man changed by the truth. Later that evening, Marcus sits alone in his chambers, the dim glow of his desk lamp casting shadows across stacks of legal briefs. He leans back in his chair, replaying the day's events in his mind. The courage of the boy, the weight of Adam's confession, the victory that will ripple through the community. He knows the road to change is long, but today's ruling is a step forward, a reminder of why he chose this path. Looking at the framed photo of his family, he allows himself a small moment of hope. Change begins with truth, and today, truth prevailed. It's not the end, but it's a start.